online and then probably in person too, but I saw the one online and I was getting a lot of comments back on your speech and I know I tried to cover when you're not there, so that's where I come in at. So that's how the family meeting went. So and they had a lot of people, a lot of elders, a lot of ladies, elderly ladies there. I mean, I know, if you could just feel that anger's mad, they want justice. They want justice for their little daughter, their little granddaughter. She was of the Bitterwater clan, and the clan there. I forgot the second clan, the grandpa's clans, and that's what they shared. So that's how much I want to share with you, Amber, and the rest of the constituents that are online. Thank you for listening to me.
Appreciate you, Shema, and for those who are joining us on the line and respecting the space that we've created this morning, to hear from Molly's family and learning about, the relatives who raised her collectively, some more about her light while she was here with us, and the joy that she, immediately that is, was what we were hearing when we were starting the search that Friday morning. So, Shema, and you have had the hard challenge of helping with the families, and what we've learned from Emily Pike and her grandparents, her grandma and her grandma's sister, and understanding the challenges that our elders face when they're raising, their grandchildren or their nollies. And from this group, we have talked with advocates who can specifically help our elders, with guardianship, with continued support on what the needs are in the community. And it definitely is always going to be a collective effort, protecting our children. Our children are our greatest resource. Here on the Navajo Nation and worldwide, they offer so much to the world, and they rely on others to take care of them, to nurture them, to protect them, to love them. And our teachers and our families at the schools become the second family, from the bus drivers to the custodians to the security, teachers, counselors. It does become a network, and it does require that all of us start each day in our prayers, praying for our children, praying for guidance, praying for their protection, to let them know that they're loved. So Shema, I appreciate that you were there with the family. What I wanted to say, and I know that it's hard, there's no training, or there's nothing that can ever prepare you for the type of emotions that you feel. And as elected leaders, we're also in a position to help guide the community. So I appreciate that you were there strong for the family, that Shiaj Casey made it out. I know and I just let him know to continue to reach out for guidance. And it looks like, the ranch, who is, part of the family down there in Loop, is going to provide support, and everybody else, because that's part of the way that we could help the family during this difficult time. But I wanted to see, Shema, if you're ready today, and if not, we could come back to it. But you're as a delegate, you sit on the HES committee, and my first term I sat on HES. That's the Health, Education, Human Service Committee, and that really is the committee that has the enormous responsibility of overseeing all of the programs that are provided for our people. And so you just let me know at this time if you wanted to just say what would be your recommendations as a delegate on that committee, so that we could make sure as a task force they're part of our recommendations. That, you know, if there's areas to fill in gaps, or if because what I want to offer is, in my experience, was we need a crisis response plan for each part of the nation. And I think that would have been great. We had to do a lot of communication collaboration on Friday, which is great, but it also, I know the community wanted to be part of the search and rescue efforts that morning. And so let me know if you feel like you want to speak about that now, or we could come back at a later time to kind of debrief on what are some of the resources or areas that we can do to help support a response plan. Sima?
Oh, okay, Nana, thank you. I think I've been saying this in HESI is that, you know, communities are like a senior center. We can't just say it's going to be a senior center. We have to label it as a community center. That way we have children that comes in. I mean, I've seen this when you provided that meeting at in Farmington, and how many, you know, youth were there helping the elders, and they were really enjoying the time with them. And we just need that time, you know, for children. Some of our children come back early, like probably nowadays. Kids get out at noontime on Fridays. And even some of them don't have school on Fridays now. If we can have maybe a youth center, that means that, like I said, the senior center can be a community center to where it's not just limited to the seniors. It could be open to the youth. And they could go there, you know, for lunch, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or some kind of activities that, you know, we just need to put more money there instead of sending our children home to an empty house. You know, sometimes maybe even the grandparents that are raising their children have to make ends meet themselves. And then the parents are out working too at times. And then that's when the grandparents come in. And I know Deltex used to do grandparents raising grandkids, but now I don't see that anymore. So I think that needs to come back to the table. That way, you know, we're giving them a little bit of money for them raising their kids. But we need to be more creative about that. That way, you know, maybe even after-school programs, create after-school programs for children like Aunt Molly, and even the one that happened in Shiprock, you know, that was an after-school thing. So that way we know that the kids are safe and that they can go home when an adult is home. So that's just what was just going through my head. What if we had something like this in each community? You know, that like this was just right there. They had NXA here, JUA on the other side. They had a chapter house there, and you know, it's like, do we even have security in the community? Maybe we need to start coming up with a security in the communities. Everywhere is like that, not just in one community. I know I met some people out of my delegate regions too that, you know, they were telling me how they feel really unsafe. They said that we have to get back inside the house by 8 o'clock and we don't leave our home because we have youth that are running around doing mess, and, you know, we're really scared of them. We had a shootout. They go, you know, we need maybe we need securities in each community. It just makes you think of all these things, you know. It's just so maybe we need to do more parenting skill trainings in school. You know, all these that I was thinking about, and I brought that up before, but it didn't really get anywhere when we had that little boy that passed in Kaibito, where he got hung up with the rope around his neck, and he passed, and this happened right after school too. And I tried to go to the school and tell them, maybe you guys need to have an extended day after school, to where you have them at the school, at the gym, let them do, you know, physical exercise. Maybe they can do homework. I mean, just provide an activity till at least 6 o'clock, to where you know that the parent is home. So, you know, we just need to work on something like that, because a lot of, back when we were growing up, you know, our parents stayed home, because, you know, they valued their children, and they didn't really, back then the lifestyle was different, you know. I grew up with no running water, no electricity, so there was really no bill to worry about right there. You know, it's just that nowadays it's different. So the parents and grandparents, you know, whoever that's adoption parent, they have to make ends meet too. So there's a really good program that my son always tells me about. He lives in Oregon. So I just might have to make a visit to Oregon and see how they do that, because it goes, Mom, we have 2 Navajo kids that are up here right now that you know, where they couldn't find parents for them out there on the reservation, so they placed them over here in Oregon, because we're Navajos and we have the paperwork to parent them. So he goes, you know, so he's like, we're here for them. And you know, I always tell my son, you two have the heart to do that. I thank you for doing that. And so we just need that parenting skill in there in school. Maybe I was even talking with the principal. Maybe we can do a parenting skill every once a month in the school. Bring in the parents, see when they're available. You know, do a survey, see when parents are available to come in. That way, you know, we can provide, even send flyers home if they can't make it to the parenting training. We just need to just really push that out there for them too. So, and that the Tuba City Boarding School was going to provide counseling for the kids, for the students, as when they could get back, probably today after the holidays. They said so. Probably they're going to have things set up like that, so that they can counsel with the student that were very close to Molly and that were friends with Molly. And I saw several girls walking in. Oh, bless their heart. They came in with cards. And they gave it to Grandma. I could just see Grandma really wiping her tears. I mean, these little girls, they really meant a lot. I mean, Molly was a good friend of theirs, and they put little money together. And they brought in they were bringing in cards for Molly. And one girl, you could just feel the hurt. You could just feel that hurt on her face, that when she gave that card to Grandma. So, you know, that's how close our kids get to. They become friends, and it's a lifetime friendship. And I remember myself losing a classmate when I was in probably fourth grade. And one day the teacher just came in and said that we're no longer going to have him in our classroom. And we're like, I wonder where he went. When, you know, maybe he went to another school, because we really never knew what death was at a young age. And my mom never took us to funeral until we were of age. I remember I didn't go to a funeral until I was probably like 14. When I lost my grandpa, that's when I first went to a funeral. Other than that, my mom never took us to a funeral. She always told us that's where kids don't belong over there. And to this day, I always teach that to my kids. So, you know, I could just see that little girl's face. I mean, I still can see her face, how hurt she was, but she didn't want to say. I think she just drew a little picture on that card and gave it to Grandma. And she said, she told Grandma, this is what Molly and I used to do. They drew a lot. So that, I just want to share that story with you guys again. And that's all I want to say right now.
Okay, appreciate you, Shema. And we have, you know, everything that you've mentioned is collectively the work we've tried to move forward as a nation, you know, developing a plan. We put a lot of work and energy in protecting our children. But I think hearing the outcry from the people is we're going to need their help to pass not only resolutions, but also to make sure funding is available for these initiatives. And it's coming from the families and the people on what services they want for their children. And so we'll work on that together and here at the task force on how we can, you know, build these communities of hope, building safe communities. There are a lot of relatives who work for the Navajo Nation who may be not living here right now, like your son, who want to make sure our children are protected. So we're gonna have to come together, and that space can be here as a task force, and we're definitely going to need help to pivot and to make sure that our funding is being used to protect our community members. I'm hearing a lot of relatives who don't feel safe in their community, and when we helped with the search for LMA, that was also brought up, the use of security cameras to make sure individuals are safe. And so there is a plan on how to support and provide, and what that would look like to, at the very minimum, train community on either how to use their phones or to set up a system around their home so that they feel protected, or that they have some video of the type of harassment or you know, individuals who are trying to cause harm. That has been something since Navajo Nation police do require. It's something they require that I'm going to have to work with some of our reach out to some of our researchers in the criminal justice system, that they require, like, something, because this has been my own experience too. Like, if you call in and you give a report, but you're the only witness there, they say something that they need, like, an additional witness or, you know, a recording. And so that has led me to have almost all the time, like, a dash cam, because it was an issue that happened. And so we do need to look at our Navajo Nation laws and our procedures so that our community can feel safe. Some of our CERT teams, the community emergency response teams, have reached out. In my district, we have 3 CERT teams of the 7. 2 of them are associated with the chapter, and 1 is a nonprofit. And they want to help out with community training, because I was able to contact the chapter president and how they developed their incident command was, exactly what, through FEMA training or through crisis responses is the role that we need our chapter officials to play in. And so it was amazing that they had that training and they set up that initial incident command. We've learned a lot from other chapters and the need for the training to happen there, just so that they're an extension to the community response when there's an incident. And so I appreciate your feedback and the work. So relatives who are on the line, I know that sometimes we use acronyms. So DALTEX, when you hear DALTEX, that's our senior center program. I think it's the Division for Aging and Long-Term Care. And I actually met Shama Helena when she was working for the program. And we've tried to do some intergenerational teachings, like connecting our elders with our children. And that's an area that we can definitely need the help. As a delegate, as I said, right, we're one person, but if we fund and encourage and create the space, then we could see some of these programs be deployed out across Navajo Nation. And Shama, we're looking at some data right now. I have some reports that the federal government released when it comes to drugs and shootings and violence. We'll need your support and the support of the council and our people to get that data from our law enforcement. So we're waiting for data from our police department, how many calls they receive at dispatch, and the outcome of those calls. And we're working with criminal investigators who have to deal with more of the major crimes. And this task force will be receiving a report from our FBI analyst who's been assigned to our region. And we're working with their schedule, and we'll share that information with the community, because there is a need for safety, but we also need to know what's happening so that we could do either prevention interventions or, what's going to be our response. And now, like for the family, Molly's family, is what type of support is, what is going to be the holistic support that we can offer the family. I know that I want to thank Kobe, who's on our call with the Department of Public, or the Department for Behavioral and Mental Health Services. I know that they were able to deploy traditional practitioners out to the community, but because of the ongoing investigation, they weren't able to connect that day. But and now that the pastors and the community is coming forward, a plan on how we're going to continue to support the family is going to be needed. And I just wanted to give you some feedback on how important it is to hear directly from the family, how important it is to hear about Molly. And then in this reflection time, of course, there is always going to be a way we can do better. There's always going to be a way we could provide more. And so, we have a very small group, right? There's literally 5 of us as a core team that are trying to develop policies, procedures, trying to develop media content, trying to develop, search and rescue protocols, trying to coordinate with all of the advocates. And so we're making these meetings more accessible so that community members can and want to be part of the solution. So we'll start providing some additional information on the 8 areas that this task force covers, the work that we've been successful in completing, and the work that we need to continue forward. So yeah, thank you, Shama, for being on the call. I want to pause here briefly and just ask, Shama, do you have anything else? I know that you were done, but do you have any other follow-up from that? Because I'm going to then ask if Gary Mike wants to speak. Okay, if there's nothing more, Tatiana, let's help with the meeting. And I'm going to see Gary Ciaz. I know that we were connecting with each other, and so I wanted to give you time right now if there's anything you wanted to share, and if not, that's fine. If it, depending on where we're at, and I want to meet you where you're at, but we are working on. And every week we basically talked about the Navajo Nation's emergency alerting system, the Ashen Mike in Indian Country, Amber Alert. I just wanted to give you some time, Gary, because you and your family have been the strong advocates to get these resources available to our community members. So I just want to pause here to see if you have anything you wanted to let us know.
Township to Asia, Amber. I'm still looking through the documents that you sent me Friday. There are some things that I have ideas to give you, and to expand on some of the ideas that you've given us for this. And so I'll be in contact with you with that matter. To Molly and family, friends, relatives, please accept my condolences. My heart's been shattered once more because of a young life being taken. And all the work that we've done, I ask myself, what more can we do to improve this? And so this is what we want to address. And I know there were some questions that I had when I heard about Molly's passing. And, I was upset, of course, because there seems to be gaps in the alert systems that the nation has, and all the alerts that others have. I mean, we should be thinking about how we can have a connection between these gaps to create a solution on distributing these information. Even though it may be tragic, we need to find out immediately who are the victims, who are the perpetrators. And this is one thing that I'd like to expand on, to work on with you. Thank you so much. Please have a safe day, everyone, and I'll be here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. Well, and so for those who are on the call, one of my efforts is my background is I'm policy, public policy analyst, and so what we're doing, what I did was, working with the Arizona Missing and Murdered Indigenous Persons Task Force. We have individuals where we also communicate, and we've been hosting some listening sessions on the Arizona Turquoise Alert, which was broadcasted out. So I have some policy recommendations for the council, some requests that we're going to be making to the state of Arizona when it comes to their Turquoise Alert, requesting data, requesting when the first request for the alert was received, when it was issued. I kind of have some guidance in terms of the data we're going to need, and so also developing a quick survey. If you haven't received that, I know I'm just sharing stuff on my Facebook because, again, there's really literally 5 of us that are doing this work. And so if you could just share that or provide that link. I've been asked, is there a deadline? And I believe the way that it collects data is daily. And so I'm not going to say there's a deadline because we need to get as much information that we could collect on a community from the community on how they received alerts on January. Let me get the date right, 16th. I want to say January 16th, and so it's some quick data, but we're sharing this information through Google Docs, and so our concern has always been, and when we open up these discussions to the broader public, we've been challenged with, of course, you know, there's individuals out there with ill intent. So as we create this space to try to be trauma informed, there are individuals who are out there who will try to invade the space, you know, with either spamming or audio, and it just really dysregulates the work we're trying to do. So this is my attempt to have trust in this, you know, virtual space we've created. So we'll need all of your help, and we'll figure out a better way, if it means like registering to make sure that you're live on the call. But we also, I've asked for this to be live streamed on the council's social media, because we have to rely on the council and the Office of Speaker to provide, you know, all of that social support. And so if you want access to the Google Docs, just please send Tatiana an email or in the chat. And I know that we always ask, like, okay, send this information, because we don't want then someone with ill intent to have access to those forums and start, you know, just with ill intent, because our goal here is to make sure we're collecting the information that we need to protect our people, and that's what's always in mind. So we'll have that information, and we'll go over that. I think in terms of time sensitivity, I just wanted to let you know that those requests will be made this week. I've already requested from the Navajo Nation Public Safety an update on, you know, their protocol and when they issued out and deployed out those alerts, and the status of the Navajo Nation alert system, that we have had challenges. I know that I did not receive an alert through the Navajo Nation alert system, and we've talked to Chief Silversmith about the issue that I think the last time we received an alert collectively was right before Halloween. And so I'm going back, and again, this is the challenge that takes away from some of the time that I have the ability to move forward on some of these projects, is I'm looking at my notes on all of the funding that has been approved to support the Navajo Nation alert system, and that dates back all the way from 2016. So I'm trying to pull out records, and if anybody out there who also tracks how Navajo Nation has implemented the Ashton Mike and Indian Country Amber Alert, that would be helpful and beneficial. If anybody out there is tracking, that would help me and our policy team in collaboration. So let's see. So we have Gary here, and then I wanted to also, and if I haven't thanked reaching out, Division Director Cody and Thomas Cody with Division for Children and Family Services. We were already in coordination with our last meeting and talking with Adobe. And so we had just happened, again, that collaboration then on Friday morning transitioned into how his team there can help support the community and the family. And then when we all, you know, when the news was made, then transitioning into supporting after the recovery. So I want to just see, I don't think Mr. Cody's on the line. I just want to see if there's someone from Division for Children and Family Services that wanted to briefly speak to the task force and giving us your perspective from on the ground and how you deployed services Friday.
Delegate Crotty, this is Samata Jim. I can speak.
Okay, said it. I always just want to give you the opportunity. You have the floor. Thank you so much.
This is again Samata Jim. I'll speak on behalf of the Division for Children and Family Services as the Deputy Director right now. We did deploy staff as soon as we got the alert from law enforcement. And we did send our counselors, our traditional practitioners from our Navajo Treatment for Families department. And we also sent our social workers from the Department of Family Services. So for those of you on the call who are not familiar with our division, our overall division is the Division for Children and Family Services, and sometimes that gets mixed up with our Department for Family Services.
Mm-hmm.
Services serves children, families, and elders, and we do have a team that has been responding from Child Protective Services and also working closely with law enforcement. So initially, when we did have our team there, we had to respect law enforcement perimeters and let them do their investigation. We did let the families and the law enforcement teams know that we were on standby there on the ground, ready to help and assist where needed. So those were the teams that were out there deployed, and then we continue to be on standby for the family. We do have our own staff from the Department of Family Services conducting their own investigation. So again, working closely with law enforcement. That's all I have, Delegate Crotty.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Something that I would just in terms of a recommendation or how we could work collectively together is for some of these remote chapters that have limited facilities, that is there a way, or if we could have a conversation about mobile units. During COVID, we had discussed the need to provide services, in the communities. And so if there's a way that we could talk about what a mobile unit may look like for your division. So, and this could be used in different entities, but at least for a crisis response, then your team there has resources or like a place there and not then, that's separate so that law enforcement can continue with their command center, because I think that's something that we, in our debrief, is when it went from a chapter like community command center, then the immediate need for a law enforcement command center, there really was no space for other non-law enforcement resources. So I think that could be something as a low-hanging fruit that we could possibly look for funding and provide those resources for individuals who were there. And in my observation, for those who were trying to come into the community, not knowing about the lockdown situation, I really felt like there should have been a space for them to be able to convene, and maybe that's where services could have been provided. So we eventually went to Tuba City, and I know the chapter there did open their doors for any service providers or community members, and reached out to Tuba City Regional Health Center. So if that collectively, Shada, in your experience, how we could help support if there is a crisis response team, and then if there could be some type of mobile unit that could just be a place there to provide services that are non-law enforcement related. Shada, do you have any feedback on that request or that suggestion? Let me know if that's already in the plans or something we would have to work collectively on.
Thank you, Delegate Crotty. Yes, that is definitely something that we observed as well. And we were coordinating with the Navajo Division for Behavioral and Mental Health Services, DBMHS. And that's the same obstacle they were facing as well. And so in our debrief, that's one of the areas that we definitely need to come together on to see how, when we are working with law enforcement, we have DBMHS as the lead for mental health services, and how we will build our coordinated efforts for the children. And so I agree with you. That's definitely an area that we have to look at in terms of a mobile setup. So thank you for that.
Okay, appreciate it. So appreciate that report. And so I wanted to see Yolanda. Shada, are you able to get off of mute from the Office of the President and Vice President? If you wanted to give any insight to the family or any other information that you think would be helpful for the task force and relatives to hear, and so collectively we could work on solutions. Thank you.
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
We could hear you. On my end, it's pretty low. Let me see.
Mic check.
Ooh.
Mic check. Can you
Okay,
hear
hold on
me?
a little. If that's the best you could do, Yolanda, we could hear you, and we will listen.
Good morning, everyone. On January 16, 2026, I just want to read something that came to my heart, and this is too much. To my sister, Helena, to the parents, grandparents, family, and community of Columbine, Arizona. I am deeply saddened to hear about your daughter, granddaughter, little friend who was taken too soon. I see my colleagues who are devastated and take it as a personal loss. From a distance, we feel your loss and can only imagine the effect on your community as you mourn. Words seem wholly inadequate to express even a part of our feelings as the rest of the Navajo Nation lifts the community of Coal Mine, Arizona, to the Creator for courage and strength. Once again, our thoughts and prayers are
Tati, I'm sorry, did we lose Yolanda? I think. Oh, nope, she's still on, but unmute Yolanda. Somehow you're back on mute. And I apologize.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Okay.
Yes, well, the last thing we heard, Shade, was thoughts and prayers. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Once again, our thoughts and prayers are with you and your community. Please accept our deepest sympathy. To Mr. Gary Mike, who's on the line, to Ms. Helena Nez, to my colleagues, you did not hear her cry or screams physically, but as a mother, father who gave birth to children of your own and seen your own children birth grandchildren, you heard the cry from your heart. That's why the community loves and trusts you. Thank you for being that advocate to protect our vulnerable individuals. Yolanda Azua.
Okay, Shada, thank you for providing your words, your heart words from this having to navigate all of these emotions and grief and frustration and anger, and trying to do your best to provide resources and be that point of contact for the Office of the President and Vice President. Appreciate your role in this and your integrity, and how collectively we're going to work together to meet the needs of our community. So appreciate you so much. Yolanda, help me understand. Go ahead.
I just want to say
Shema.
thank you to. I just want to say thank you to, is it Yolanda?
Yolanda.
And, okay, Yolanda, thank you. Thank you for your words, and yes, it is tough, and to endure something like this and not knowing are just thinking of and feeling what the family's really going through. You know, we just have to be there for them. And thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your sympathy, and I appreciate it. Back to you, Chair.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So Yolanda Shudit, at this time, did you want to express anything else? But if that's what you want to share today, we're also in a good spot. I just want to give you that time and opportunity.
It's hard. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate you. Thank you. Appreciate you. Okay. All right. So Tatiana, helping navigate this conversation, I just want to thank the staff for, again, creating this safe space. We do have the chat function, so we'll try to maximize the chat for this conversation. And I just wanted to see, Kobe, did you want to speak on behalf of Department of Behavioral and Mental Health? Let me know how you're feeling about that, Kobe.
Hi, I'd just like to say a few things, if that's okay.
You have the floor, Kobe. Whatever your heart is telling you today.
Okay, I just would like to speak and say that I'm happy that we are here and having this conversation, and I am listening. And like I said, I'm happy we're having this conversation, and that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kobe. And so we're grateful that you are committed to these conversations on behalf of the Division for Behavioral Mental Health Services. If you could echo the recommendation, and it looks like we would also support that if the Department for Behavioral Mental Health Services will be the lead agent when there's a non-law enforcement crisis response. And if you already have, because the conversations we've had historically, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it was a public health disaster like COVID, and now when it's violence or community mental health, if your team there could be the lead on what that response plan looks like, so that we're all adequately trained and informed what how we can support, and also for the community certs and the chapters, the officials, we would all benefit from having that information, having that continuous training, so that we could be part of the solution. So thank you, Wes, for being on the call.
Yes,
okay.
I will. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, yes, I'll relay this to my leadership. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, and so we spoke about, I just wanted to go to Laurel Chanel, or in terms of the advocate support, and we also have Tanya Grass on the line. So Chanel, right now, let me know in terms of where you feel comfortable in either sharing, it could be a mix, since how it's impacted us all individually, and where we're at, and then I'll go on, and then I'll go to Tanya Grass. Chanel?
Hi, Chanela, thank you. Just to, in regards to the privacy and that for victims, I can't share any of that information, but in regards to the overall work and also being a community member and a task force member, I'm wondering, in addition to the reports that we're asking for, I'm wondering if we can add to that request and ask law enforcement how many Amber Alerts have been issued through the Navajo Nation, and also what the challenges are and the gaps in providing that, issuing that alert as well. And then in regards to this case, definitely following up on why and what the challenges were in getting those that alert escalated to something higher. And I'd like to also echo the words of how it's going to have to be the community. Forgive me, I'm trying to figure out a way to put this lightly. We've been trying since Ashland to get this Amber Alert in Indian Country started. It's been years, and I am, in addition to a lot of the community work, it feels like it's going to have to be the community that does something about this. So part of where I've been wondering if there is something that we can universally use as a sovereign nation to create a community alert system that will be handled by the communities, so we can issue these alerts, especially if our children are that precious to us. Like, why can't we do this on our own? It sounds like I don't know what the challenges are within law enforcement, but if they can't get it done, I feel like a lot of the community members and agencies outside of the Navajo Nation government are the ones that are able to get things done. So is there a different alert system that can be utilized in the community and that can be made Navajo Nation-wide as a sovereign nation? And then in addition to that, there was talk about funding and security within each community and chapter. I think I would highly recommend that each delegate that the areas that they represent ask for funding for infrastructure to have some type of security system like they have similar at Kayenta at their school. Their parking lots are security lamps, but also they have recording on there, and it looks out for the people in that school and the visitors as well, and it records stuff. Can we have that for our communities, or can we ask NHA to implement those in community housings if that's where we're looking for funding? And I guess within Department of Family Services and those areas that look out for our children, there needs to be some type of prevention and like funding pushes towards encouraging communities to figure out a way and support financially to look out for our children. It definitely is a different time. And then also looking at our probation and our SORNA team to look at how they are looking out for those that they should be monitoring. And as a sovereign nation, I think we can, when things happen criminally, we as a sovereign nation can charge tribally and federally. And so maybe some of those can be pursued more in terms of monitoring after criminals get out of federal custody, and we do a different type of monitoring, which includes healing, because a lot of these who are perpetuating this cycle have been victims before. And there's a lot that can be done in terms of those pieces, and taking a step back and looking at what can be done. So but as an agency, I can't disclose that part, but I'm just thinking about all these pieces where maybe it's time we as community figure out our own alert system. And as a sovereign nation, don't we have the power to figure out what our standards are going to be when we look out and make an alert for something? So we have that power. Why don't we utilize it and implement something that is dear to our hearts, where we're looking out for our elderly and our children, instead of going by federal standards or law enforcement standards in terms of prevention before something like this happens again, either to our children or our precious elderly. So I think we really need to step back and take a look at this from a perspective, and also support towards the school. I know that the boarding school has suffered a tragedy with losing children within 2 weeks. They've lost a couple, and there needs to be some additional support. Just it needs to be flooded in that area as well. So those are just a few of my recommendations based off of what's been shared. I think as a task force, we should also switch to what can be done, because I feel like we've been fighting this for years now, and it's just, oh, we'll have a report for you the next time, and it's just on wood, and I don't know how to say that, but maybe somebody can translate that, and it's getting away from us, and something needs to be done now. So that's all I'll share for now.
Appreciate it, Chanela, and I just want to make sure, and for the advocates who are on the line, yes, definitely never, we don't disclose any confidential information. It's up to the families themselves if they want to share and when they want to. And right now, we respect the family's boundaries, and I always ask community members to respect where they're at, and because they have lost so much control, us just giving them that space to have, control over information, control of what they want to share, control of the next steps forward can be very helpful. So let's all be patient and let's all respect where the family, where the family's at and how they want us, because it's them inviting us into to this conversation. So appreciate that. Gary, I see your hand is raised, and I want to do a time check. We're supposed to end at 10, but I'm available to be on the call longer than 10. But Gary, go ahead if you want to give us some insight where you're at, and we'll be sharing. But something I wanted to mention, if you don't know what SORNA is, get another acronym that's critical for us to know, is Sexual Offender Registered, I always forget the last, NA, Navajo Nation. We do have, we receive federal funding and we implement the SORNA. We have SORNA officers. That page, you can have access to that information if it's for education, if it's for, let's say, safety of the registered sex offenders here on Navajo Nation. I just want to let you know that you will find in learning more about SORNA is there's different tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 3 is the most heinous crime, and that's the majority of cases that we see here on Navajo Nation. There has been different attempts to make sure that we are properly monitoring all of those individuals. And this is where we need community help, because we have found registered sex offenders whose actual address had been like a school's housing, where, let's say, their spouse worked at the school, but they're a registered sex offender. They have lost their ability to live in school housing. So we made sure that they're not living in or near a school. And so that's kind of the work. If anything that I'm saying here is the help that we need collectively. And also to make sure that that information is accurate. We are receiving, especially when it's a victim of the crime, they'll monitor their perpetrator. And that's why we passed Navajo Nation Victim Rights Act. So they have information on where that individual is living and registered at. And what I've received is from those victims of those crimes will say that individual is either absconded, that means they're not checking in, or they're providing fake information. We also have an issue with our Navajo Nation courts that has been reported that they have allowed known sex offenders to change their names. And so these are all like the magnitude of issues that we are working on collectively. And again, for the core team, I'm going to say it's 5, no more than 10 people who are weekly working on these challenges. And so if there's a way that we could, that you want to help and be part of the solution, there's definitely a lot of need. Okay, so Gary, go ahead, and you have the floor.
Yeah, Shadeja. That's a very important topic that you mentioned about people that do offend on the Navajo Nation or any other Indian country. They need to be accounted for, and what you've just said is one of the tools that we have available to our community to find out who these offenders are in our residents, in our area, in our part of the country. And I have also like to, excuse me, mention that the Ashland Mike Amber Alert and Indian Country Act, worked by Pamela and the late senator from Arizona. They worked so hard with their hearts to bring back this act, this Amber Alert that was offered to Native Americans across the country years before, the abduction of my daughter. But now it's in place, and we need to recognize what this Amber Alert gave to or offered to all the Native tribes across the country, and that is the Amber Alert Training and Technical Assistance Program. This program offers free training to investigative responders, regional, state, and tribal law enforcement that can be open to public also. Not just the tribal law enforcements or the regional law enforcements. It can also be open to the public, where people can get ideas about how to keep their communities safe. And I just like to make sure that you all know about these free training programs from the Amber Alert. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you, Shaj. I appreciate you making sure that we all are informed that there's free training available. Communities can request for training. We've received training as a task force, and on the 30th, we're going to have a training with our Coalition of Stop Violence Against Native Women on human trafficking, which all play a part in the violence that we're seeing in the community. So let's see. I wanted to say, Zonabal, thank you in the chat. We're getting ready for the tribal consultation on the violence against women. It actually starts. Some of the pre-tribal leadership discussions start today. I've decided, and with our funding vetoed, I'm not able to personally cover the travel to Minnesota, so I'll be participating online. We've had our Navajo Nation Washington office develop our position papers from the questions that the Office of Violence Against Women are asking us. I do know that we have to confirm to be there in person is our Vice President Rochelle Montoya will be there in person, and SHADA Chair Eugenia Charles Newton, who chairs the Law and Order Committee and is also a Missing and Murdered and Their Relatives task force member, will be there in person. So collectively, we will be providing testimony on behalf of Navajo Nation, answering framing questions to our federal partners, and of course monitoring some of the funding that has decreased from the federal government. And so these are areas that you could look at, like for the Office of Victims of Crime. We were successful in getting a tribal set aside. And for the last 2 years, we've seen a reduction from $2 million to now, I believe, something just under 400,000. So that's nearly a 75% decrease in services for our victims of crime that have a direct impact on our community members. And that would provide funding for our advocates. It's also provided some funding in the past for our Office of the Prosecutor, victim advocates. And so when we see these, these federal decrease, it does impact services. So on Navajo Nation, you may have heard about this year, we've had the most we've allocated to victims of crime and for our missing relatives is about $5 million of Navajo Nation dollars. So our dollars, the money that we collect off of royalties, off of tax. Our goal as this task force is to recommend that funding be used to support our victims of violence and our missing and murdered and their relatives' families. Because in the federal funding, it's very limited, the amount of funding that could be used for a missing person. And so we are trying to maximize, and that's why as tribal leadership, we constantly have to go and advocate and let them know through our teachings and our kinship that when there's a missing relative, that we will deploy and that we will take action. And we've had to change some of the mindset of our own Navajo Nation law enforcement. We had to change the mindset of our federal partners and, and Navajo Nation leadership, because we do need the support of the council and the Navajo Nation president to approve that funding and to make sure it's deployed and to be used what it's intended for, to maximize services. I did want to mention, Gary, thank you for acknowledging Shada Pamela Foster. She has been critical in this conversation. She continues to allow us also to be part of the advocacy and in her work for Ashlyn, and not only hearing her story, but she's also taught us a lot about how the media should portray our children, and that's why I will continue to echo and I will continue to assert that the families should, and the way we talk about our relatives should be with compassion and care, as if though that is our child, because that's how we are connected when we introduce each other. We're establishing that kinship connection. And so how we portray in the media and in the public and in our own social media and sharing, you can be part of that healing by making sure Molly's story and any of our children or victims of crime stories are accurate, and also compassionate, because that family wants to remember their loved one, their relative, and in their love and light when they were here with us. And so we do have individuals who seek, to exploit stories. And Pamela has shared with me, how can we remove podcasts that did not get consent to share Ashlyn's story? How do we have reporters who continuously exploit and provide graphic detail? How do we change the media reporting of our loved one? And that's what I constantly saw on Friday, where there's ways that we could report in a trauma-informed way. And so we've hoped to capture that in this task force. We do have a media section in our community response. We've asked that all of the Navajo Nation public information officers at least provide some collaboration and training, so on how they're reporting out these stories, and to work with, you know, our Indigenous reporters so that they could be also connection to mainstream media on how they represent our stories. And you know, I was just looking at how much, you know, how many calls, how many meetings, how many conferences I've presented on, how many presentations, how many, you know, how much more needs to be done to just bring us back to humanity and recognize that this is a child we're talking about, and this is not a movie. This is a child who had who, you know, life was within this child. And so I understand, you know, psychologist telling me the need for others, you know, that live off of the attention, who live off of the need to feel validated by clicks. But remember that we're talking about a child, and your children are watching your actions and your words. And so I just want to echo that out, that's a call out to media on how they reported Molly, how they're reporting afterwards. And, you know, the questions that was filtered to me by reporters, I just had to start telling them that is inappropriate to ask about a child. That's an inappropriate question. You have, you know, there's no need for graphic detail. There's no need for the type of words you're putting together. And that's where we still need to remain our human, you know, the human side of us. And, you know, with AI technology and pulling words together, there still needs to be that individual who has that moral compass to say, she was a child and she deserves our words to be used in a respectful manner. So appreciate, and Gary, the late senator was Senator John McCain. I remember testifying in front of his Senate committee on the Ashen Lake in Indian Country Amber Alert, and he was very, very concerned about how the Navajo Nation government utilizes federal funding that is specifically allocated and how it's used when it hits the Navajo Nation government coffers. That means our funds, and how Navajo Nation programs utilize that funding. And he was very blunt with me at that hearing. And I remember, and if I haven't said this before, and I remember him specifically telling me if he finds out that Navajo Nation has misused these funds, that he would put me in jail. And I remember I was a new delegate. I think that may have been my second year. And at that time, I did not understand how the history that Navajo Nation government has when it comes to federal, state, and tribal money, and the misuse and abuse. And so I've also committed myself to making sure that our funds are used properly, whether it's external or internal, and how that really has impacted our community members. Because by this point, we should have a system that properly provides resources to our community. So I think all of this, done a lot of reflection. We've done a lot of work, and there has been times this weekend where I have asked myself, what more can be done? And so I appreciate Nali here mentioning, Sanella mentioning now, it's really, my work and my focus is going to continue to work with the people to get the resources and demand the resources that we need, the funding that we need, and if, you know, how I could help emerging leadership learn about some of the challenges, you know, what it takes to know the budgets, what it takes to make sure as oversight, the programs are providing services where they belong. How do we maximize community response back. Are these programs providing the resources that they're funded to? And so I've had to see and, you know, talk with my family, talk with my children, with my daughters to say what more needs to be done. And in my role as a delegate, because that was also challenged, which was interesting on Friday, the role then of the delegate to be able to make sure that these changes are made. And so it can't be just one of us. It can't just be, you know, I think on the delegate side, I collectively work with maybe, I want to say there's 5 of us too, that collectively work on these issues on a daily, hourly issue. And so how do we broaden and have, you know, this task force provides resource or recommendations to leadership. So how do we keep them accountable? And I'm going to need all the 400,000 plus Navajos to help us with this. So I wanted to thank you, and also thanking you to allow me to just to express some of the things that we have had to do in terms of leadership and moving forward. So I appreciate all of the chats. We are collecting this information, and we are building up the capacity at Navajo Technical University. We've secured funding for their data to develop a data base there. We want to onboard researchers who can analyze our community-based data, understanding the lens of where we come from as Navajos, and understanding how stories play a part, and really hearing from the families and creating a safe space for them to tell their stories, so that we can do better. Because what they want us to do is review, like a case review on how you know, the different steps in their cases, so that we could make policy changes. But that's going to take all of us, 4,000 plus Navajos, our kinship, our surrounding relatives who are in the border towns, who are in urban areas, and those worldwide who have been impacted by another tragic loss of a Navajo child. And knowing from the community that I believe this is the 4th child, Navajo child, that we have lost since the beginning of the year to violence. And so at one point we did have a child fatality group, and in my notes I haven't heard if what is the status of that child fatality group, or they may have merged into another group, just like our child advocacy centers are now the Navajo Family Treatment Centers. And so it is going to take all of us to be part of this work and solution. So thank you for all of the chats on and recommendations online. We will continue to have these conversations Tuesday mornings. If you specifically want the information on how I plan to move forward on some suggestions when it comes to the Arizona turquoise alert, we could, I'm offering to share those forms. And Dee, I'm going to come to you right next because I saw that your hand was up earlier. I'm hoping to finalize some of the drafts for the Navajo Nation alert system. We've reached out to, I want to thank Gary's reached out to New Mexico representatives and leadership on their turquoise alert. And today is actually the beginning of the New Mexico legislature. And so Speaker Curley will be there on my behalf, because I told her I just can't, we have to immediately address some of these systemic issues. Then we'll look at Utah, and then the plan from a policy perspective. Milton, Shiash, some of the suggestions you have made will be critical. So collectively, and for others who are there in the policy world, to help assist what you need to know in terms of information on Navajo Nation budgets. We have Tatiana, who heads up our media component for the Tribal Community Response Plan. And so she has her meetings for how media should portray and work with our families. Laurel and Tanya Grass work on the advocate section of our community response plan, and the community outreach, it's Zanaba and Vanjie, and I believe Sunshine Shedit are working on the community outreach side with Andrea with Four Corner Search and Rescue and Janet Deschini. And so the law enforcement side, we have been waiting for Navajo Nation public safety, but I'm going to move forward to legislate this process, what we would want, how we would want law enforcement to respond when there's a missing relative. And so we'll continue to engage, and we could share, I think, Tatiana, you could share what our current draft looks like as we navigate. So what is the Tribal Community Response Plan? It comes from a federal law called the Savannahs Act, where we lost a relative up north, where she was brutally, basically kidnapped and viciously murdered. And in that law, what it requires from the federal government is this comprehensive plan working with federal, state, and tribal law enforcement when it comes to a missing relative. And so our first draft was signed by former President Jonathan Nez in 2022. In 2024, this task force, we asked for an update because it was outdated. And so President Nygren signed executive order in, I think, the beginning of May in 2025, identifying the Attorney General to coordinate with law enforcement and different Navajo Nation programs to develop a community response plan. And we have yet to see that draft. And so I've sent out a few memos requesting that information from the Office of President and Vice President. But internally, we have worked as a task force to at least update the media section, the advocate section, the community outreach section, and what we'll do is help finalize that law enforcement section, and we'll help collectively sponsor that, and with the help of the public, get that plan approved, because it looks like for other tribal nations, some even update it every 6 months. But our goal at least is to do annually. And so we have been, since September of 2024. So that's been just around 15 months. We've been waiting for an update, and so we'll have to move forward. Dee, I know you wanted to speak. Did you want to say something? And then I'm going to go to Tatiana.
Hi, yeah, good morning, Yate. Good morning, everybody. Yate, Shea, Delvina, Charlie, and Ashia. To Ohana Nishlo, Ashihi Bashichin, Tobahe Dashiche, Tachini Dashanella, Ede Huadao, Dana Asta Nishlim. Thank you guys for having me and everyone being here today. And I can definitely voice how I feel about what had happened over the weekend. And I knew for the fact that, we were presenting today, some, the people that wanted to be part of it and to be here to help us offer the services available to all the community members and our leaders and everyone in here. We do have services available throughout Navajo Nation. We do have it there. We have the behavioral health and the mental health services. Thank you for being here and also being available, but also that we know that the resources are there. We know that these laws are implied. We've lost Ashland 10 years ago, and now we're at Molly 10 years later, guys. Where in between did this happen? What did we do? I feel personally, I felt the night that this went down, I was with my family. I was with my loved ones. I run these 2 pages mainly by myself because our community gets tired. They get tired. And I was wanting the evening to myself. I woke up, I think 2 a.m. just to browse quickly, check my messages, because I made the evening and I saw the alert. I saw a relative in the community posting 1 hour asking for help. 1 hour. At 2 a.m, Navajo Nation declared her missing. Until 8 a.m., Arizona knew, the rest of the Arizona. That's how fast information travels, whether we have control or not. But one thing we do have control over today, like Gary, Mike, and Pamela Foster's daughter created for us today, and for Emily Pike, is this turquoise alert. We got to get back to our leaders up above of who do have the services. And that's where we're stuck at today of Amber Crotty, her voice being pushed down again, and our leaders here on Navajo Nation, that we got to go back again to voice to the Arizona state that justifying that they don't know if it is really worth sending these alerts out. That's what we hear. And that's pretty insulting to hear about our own people. And it's their people too. They get tax monies for this. They get funding for this. Her identity and this Molly's identity, we're all part of this. And for us today to be part of the solution is remembering that. And part of this is, healing ourselves within. We do have the services within our homes, within our family. Unfortunately, our community's hurting. When we're hurting, we end up hurting people. Right now, I come here full, with a bit of anxiety, with a bit of PTSD, seeing Gary's face again, hearing his voice, seeing his tears again, hearing the little girls coming in with the little hearts to go give to grandma. That right there hit me again. I remember sitting on my couch in North Phoenix, hearing more details about Ashton, Mike, and that was something that never left my heart. And that's why I've been pushing my page for the last 10 years to help our community. And I don't say my page too. I say it's the community, and I remind the community on there how to behave, how to conduct themselves, how to properly service each other, how to behave. And they get warnings and they get educated through my page as well. And I encourage them to get out there to get help. I limit the resources being shared, and that's where I get blasted too. So I know how it feels being at the opposite end of trying to bring help to be services. Sitting here today, hearing this is really, a mixed emotions again. It was supposed to be a time of us of healing, by the way. This was a time of us to bring services to help prevent this number from rising. Today, this meeting was what we were to gather to bring solutions in and bringing up more of the issues that have aroused. And this happened over the weekend. We got to go back to creator with this than fighting each other. What can we do, creator? What can I do to make this better? What could I have done to make this not happen again? That's where I live in my life with my guiltness. Instead of projecting and reflecting on others, I go with creator first and then start reaching out to my community. And that's part of healing. When we heal our identity. Then our bloodline heals, our family heals, our home heals when we heal first. Why was she with grandma? I'm not blasting the family, please. Please refrain from thinking I'm attacking anybody. Why was she with grandma? Where was mom and dad? Where were the neighbors to walk her home safely? We live in a community that says we're okay, it's safe. That's what sovereign laws are for. It's very rare for things like this to happen on a reservation. But sexual abuse and sexual violence, definitely domestic violence, is more highly prone, exposed to violence. And sounds like what environment she was in. So she was put with grandma. That's where I grew up, with grandma. She was my safe place, safe space. We need that in our community. I hear our community asking my different members, different forms. We need help. We need resources. Yes, we do. The infrastructure is not there. We have 10 years of a gap. Within this time frame is where we brought solutions, and that's what we want to share today. And we're asking, of course, many of them had to leave, which is fine. Thank you guys for being here. It's been a long one, a little bit over. I appreciate everyone staying this long. So we ask to please continue to attend these meetings on Tuesdays. We need your voice. We need your words. We need your knowledge. Please educate with us. Please hear our leaders out. Hear our community out. The more people that know, the more awareness goes further out. The education is needed. Some of us grew up in sheltered life. That's fine. That's fine. You're blessed. You were an answered prayer for our ancestors, but our ancestors also walked, fought, sang, and prayed for me in ceremony from Huelde. We learned from Huelde about what happened today. That's where we got to go back and remember the medicine they carried home for us. Remember the prayers, whether you sit in church or in ceremony. This weekend, many of us crawled out of ceremonies to this devastating news. We came out of ceremonies. And this is what we had to pray about and come together in unity as community. We can take this as a way to division, but I'm proud of my elders for coming together at this meeting. It was an honor to hear that, by the way, to our representative being there. Thank you for sharing that. I was full of elders. That's what I'm praying and hearing today, because we need their voices. Just like the trees, when we respect the trees and the medicine to plant, they say the reason we play with these plants is because they've seen and heard and witnessed so much life, things that happen on this earth that we don't understand. So we use it and we ask it for guidance and protection. While that's our elders are the same way. We must go back to them and listen to them and go back to their prayers and community. And with this being said, they have the solutions and answers for us to heal within, to help us to reduce these numbers. But also today, us as leaders and the voices that went through this, that they prayed for us, it's our time to be voices to go further for this turquoise alert. There's a feather alert and there's a turquoise alert, and they don't know which one to send. Let's get down and collaborate and unify. Emily Pike has brought that for us, with Ashlyn to Emily, now to Molly. 2 Navajo girls and an Apache girl. We are strong tribes and reservations throughout here. We are the largest, by the way. We are the largest tribe, the largest reservation. We get the largest funding and grant money in this whole entire here, in this entire country. Why are we still lacking 10 years behind with technology? Why are we still 10 years back? Why are we back in square one with Ashlyn? That's where I'm at today and where we're going to continue to move forward. What solutions can we bring and to offer our people, but most of all, our leaders? Thank you guys for giving me the time to speak and voice. And I hope to see you guys next Tuesday to be part of more answers to bring, because this also sparked more of what we need to target as well. So I'm not upset. We shouldn't be upset. We're hurting already. We're hurting. Let's pray for each other, pray for our leaders, pray for them the most, because they got to remember who they are too. They need to. And we thank you for that. I was at the event this past week on Wednesday out here at Arizona State Capitol. They talked a lot about gaming and funding. That's an investment that our people are looking more into. They did speak about water. They did speak about MMIP. Our MMIP and our MMIW number officially just rose again over the weekend. And with this being said, I've heard more of what can we do to invest in our people. Well, with sovereign laws keep a lot of in and out. Sovereign laws are meant to protect us, to keep the healing there, to keep our people there, to keep our culture, for us to preserve the ways of life. Well, unfortunately, for us to go into help now, organizations off of the reservation border towns outside here in the valley in Phoenix, where I reside, and I still am informed, by the way, we want to help. We want to come home. Right now, we need a safe place, safe space to be. Asking chapter houses to open up places for us. We're asking for churches to let us in. We're asking for any places that hold public space to allow us in, to bring this message, to speak about it, to unify. If anything, please attend your local chapter meetings and be a voice. I know we're tired. I'm tired too. But we got to keep going. That's why we get up in the morning and pray with our water. Regardless if you're Christian, Catholic, regardless if you're atheist, regardless if you are deep traditional rooted like myself, we still need water. Pray with the water, and remember our water is an issue too. So we have a lot of issues going back. Our government is focused on that right now. I've noticed that they're focused on the farming, the data center. They're focused on bringing money and revenue to our people. But right now, look at what happens. This place can bring man camps, by the way. These man camps are known to go to rise numbers of women and violence abuse. So there's different things we're targeting that could still happen. Molly was something that could have been reduced. Where was the alert when she went missing? Where was their fast reaction and response? Her identity would have been definitely made a difference if she was white. And that should not be fair at all. She was a Native American girl missing. We have many missing today. Today, within New Year's to now, I know 10 people that relapsed, that went back into incarceration, that are back on the streets, that have died from addiction, that have went and rise the MMIP number. Since New Year's to today, what are we going to do? Why are we waiting? And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being here, for being the voice and praying. And I hope to see you guys next week and be part of the voice and solution and continue to collaborate with each other here.
Khadija, I appreciate your strong words and your wisdom and keeping us connected with our relatives they're in the urban setting, what collectively we have done together as community, not being part of Navajo Nation government or like a nonprofit, and also for our relatives who are struggling out there with addiction, because we know that disease is a way to numb their pain from a trauma they have endured. And so it is a systemic issue. We try to address some of these major areas in our Agenda Action Plan, and collectively we'll have to do it together. So I do see, Tatiana, you've had your hand raised, Khadijah, and then we'll go to Khadijah and Ms. Charlie with Navajo Government Development next. Tatiana?
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to give a little bit of information on the TCRP, the Tribal Community Response Plan. We are working with the same organization that gave us the training for the child abduction training, tabletop training. That's the National Criminal Justice Training Center of Fox Valley Technical College. That is being scheduled. It's in the working progress. I'm working with Andrea to finalize the date with them. So just letting everyone know that that training will be scheduled soon. Thank you.
And Tatiana or Andrea, did you want to talk about the 30th training with the coalition?
Yes, so we were able to finalize a lot of things last week with Twyla, along with the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women. So there's two different types of human trafficking prevention that we're going to be doing on the week of the 26th and the 30th. On the 26th, we will be kind of like a public setting meeting with the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women for the human trafficking awareness and prevention presentation. And that's going to be at the Navajo Nation Council chambers. It'll start at 8 o'clock, and we'll give people time to settle in. So we're gonna probably start around 8:30 with the actual presentation. And that's going to be also on Zoom. Everything's going to be is going to be virtually. So if you can't attend in person, it's going to be live streamed on the Navajo Nation Council's YouTube page along with the Facebook page, so everyone can have access to that information. And that's going to be with Patrick Gallegos. So he's going to be doing that, and I've been talking with him for the past month now, getting everything situated, and he's really great. He's really looking forward to sharing with us the information he has. And on January 30th, we do have the human trafficking awareness training with the same coalition and with the same presenter. And we did finalize the time that he's going to be given. So he's going to do an hour of the training session, and in between, we will have break sessions just to give people time to recollect themselves and kind of get them back into that positive mindset. So that's going to be on January 30th at the Navajo Technical University campus in Crown Point. Everything's on the flyer that I sent out on the Navajo Nations Council's Facebook page, and I believe it was shared with some different departments and organizations. We are seeing a lot of people signing up, so if you guys want to come in person, that's fine. We are offering this training session on Zoom as well. And the last day to register is going to be on January 26th, just so we can finalize the email listing and we can get all of the logistics ready for the 30th. So those are the two updates we have for that training session and the presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. And just want to let community know that this task force were created under the Navikiatut committee, which is part of the Navajo Nation Council. And I believe, I don't know if our travel budget has been restored, so that has limited our ability for trainings, or at least to support trainers to come on to Navajo Nation to provide training. So we're trying to maximize as much of a virtual option as possible. But you know, also on Navajo Nation, there is sometimes a limit on the availability of virtual. So appreciate those who will be able to join us in person or online. We're trying to accommodate as much as possible. And as I mentioned, these are being live streamed. And so you could always find our current conversations on the Navajo Nation. I think YouTube is, I've been more successful finding former conversations on YouTube, and we are utilizing technology to summarize the meetings and identify individuals who have who will help support the task force in different areas. And so we're also monitoring the different tasks that are okay. So update: no operation or travel budget at this point. All travels out of pocket, which has been for the last 4 months. And so it really has been impacted the work that we could do as a task force and for our staff. So as chair, I've been trying just to open up these discussions and dialogues as much as possible, because we also do not have a virtual option for task force members to join our task force calls. And so to have what we call official quorum, we would need, I believe, 9 task force members to attend in person, and we have not been able to meet that threshold. And so again, I've asked staff, let's open up our Tuesday meeting so you as community can hear the discussion and be part of the solution until we could rectify some of the assigned task force members to actually show up in person to make quorum. So there's some logistic issues we're dealing on our end when our funding is vetoed, and how that impacts the work of the legislative branch to do the work for our people on behalf of our people. So I'm going to go to Ms. Charlie. You have the floor. Hey, Charlie, you have your hand raised. Are you able to unmute?
Okay, sorry. I think the microphone was to another source instead.
Okay, you got the floor. We hear you.
Okay, good. Yat honest Squashay, Audrey Charlie and she to headly the national Tobaham Bashes chain, Kilachini Dational Toriji Dashache. I'm a policy analyst with the Office of Navajo Government Development. And in our office, we're working on a government reform proposal, and being part of the task force here, just kind of listening at everyone's expertise in the experiences in current circumstances and how we can be able to make adjustments and fix our government in enhancing victims' rights. I'm just listening on, just thinking about the current advocacy level and thinking about past levels of advocacy with different other circumstances that are, to try to bring awareness. And it seems like we need to reach all levels of age groups on our nation. And it, I was thinking about the radio announcements during the COVID pandemic, the constant radio announcements on the COVID pandemic. It would be great to have that same level of awareness on the radio to our elders and letting them know we need to make sure our children get safe if they need to be transported to another location, make sure our kids are being met at the bus stop if needed, and things like that, just to make sure that they are under our eyes, under of someone and the family member's eyes, from when they are released to school or when they're picked up from school, or when in the recent case with Molly, making sure they get to the other family members home safely. We need to make sure of that. And if we can have some sort of awareness level through the radio to our elders and say, like, this is this is a huge issue on our reservation. We need to make sure that we ensure that our kids are going to be safe from point A to point B. Not holding their hand, but just making sure the kids get there safely. And if there's a way that we can have those types of announcements on the radio the same level of awareness and information that was brought during the COVID pandemic. I think that would really reach all levels, and having that repeated in our heads, you hear things repeated over and over, it will click every time, hey, let's, make sure that they get there safely, or call and let me know you got there safely. Because we always get those, text me when you get there safely. That's just the concern, or the, being concerned for your family member or your friends to make sure that they are safe. And I always get that way when I'm in the city, and like, hey, let me know when you got there safely, or I let my friends know we got back to our destination safely. So I just thought maybe that's something that another level of awareness and communication and information, as well as education to our Navajo public on the reservation, that we should look into.
Oh, appreciate that, Shadija. So, yes, we have that. And actually, this is where it's challenging. We've had Navajo Nation police officers who are assigned to the missing murdered unit have reached out to the task force asking if we could find funding for them to get onto the radio, or, what you suggested. And that's why we have to, as a delegate, I have to start monitoring how the funding is being used by law enforcement, because there shouldn't be, there shouldn't be on the ground officers asking for support when funding is made available. And so what we're doing now is trying to connect with a partner who could help us with the radio segments. It does, it is expensive. I think it's like $1,500 per hour, but we do hear other programs on the radio, and especially our elders and community members who prefer to get their information via the radio. We definitely can see, or if you could help us actually, Shadija, could you identify maybe some possible programs that you may know in your work with Navajo Nation government that this would fit, some of their criteria to help us with, like, let's say the prevention, or for our community members on child safety, like what's the child safety plan? We mentioned also, the tech that also, because if you live in a community that has a low, communication. So let me tell you, at Coal Mine, there was a challenge with communication, and, another communication, something had to be deployed. I'm not sure yet if law enforcement used the Amber Alert kits that were given to each district, or I know that they had to deploy and set up another area to get like Wi-Fi, because texts weren't going through, calls weren't going through. And so we would also, and this is where it deep, dive into a policy, where if I could get the help of the Navajo government development, is we have so many of these Black areas on the nation. That means there's no communication. We have gray areas where it's touch and base. And so, especially if we're going to use, and we should use how we could utilize technology to help support, but we would also need to plan out what if texting is not an option, and that's what our relatives have to face. That's the reality they have to face until we, properly have the funding and the policies to deploy out broadband to every corner of the Navajo Nation. Or, what would the need be for like a satellite phone? We have talked about, and we haven't talked about it yet, but I've worked with, like former delegates on FirstNet. That's kind of our E911 for law enforcement, and when there's an emergency. And so in talking with the carriers, and that's going to come into like the alerts. But yeah, we'll have to, when we have that plan, we'll have to also think of all those levels. And for, we do know that there's other technology I know that I've used in some of the training to monitor. I think it's called like Life 360. Like we have a family subscription but that's because, someone in our family has the means to pay for that subscription. And so that helps in terms of location and where you're at. But that also means then everybody has to have their own phone. And so I do believe that we need to make sure we have this prevention information out there, and also make sure on the other end that all of these resources are available to our communities. And what does that look like? Because at a federal level, some of the rollbacks have been some of the tribal funding that helped families, like up to $75 to have access to broadband every month, has disappeared. And so there are these conversations. And so, but thank you for that. And that's just kind of, if we're two policy people talking to each other, I know that you could help us frame out this question and how we move forward. But initially, we'll start looking for programs to partner with, and so we could get some more radio time. And we also can work with our DALTIC program, who provide the senior centers with resources. We also can work with our healthcare providers who, see our elders when they get their medical needs. We have transport drivers that we could reach out to. We have CHRs, public health nurses. So we have a lot of places that we can help saturate and get out some of these resources, again, with ongoing training, ongoing resources. And I believe, Navajo Nation, we should have a crisis line or a number that we could call. We deploy that out at a state level. And that's also maybe something we could do on Navajo Nation to make sure that, an advocate or someone is able to pick up and provide resources for those who need it at that time. So Deja, do you have any follow-up?
Yeah, well, thank you. I know I'm new to the MMDR task force, and just listening in is trying to retain as much information. And the years that you guys have been working on this, it's a lot of work, as I've seen it at the state level as well, when I was at the Capitol. But I do still have my connections there. I still communicate with people there. As you were talking, I did have some ideas that had generated, and I think I'll reach out and see how best we can be able to get that support in getting the awareness and education on the radio station. I think that could be the first step. Because, as you're young, you're growing up, you hear these songs repeatedly, and it's like you literally grow up with those songs on KTNN. And that could be the same with the awareness. I still remember I can still actually hear the COVID announcements too, because it's on repeat almost. And I believe that could really help us to stay woke and stay aware, and having our elders to, it'll automatically click. So I do have some ideas now. I was writing down my notes as you were speaking. So, and then once I have that in place, I think I can be able to present it, because I don't want to say something and then say the idea and then not have anything behind it. It's better to have it all prepared. In addition, when I was in my previous capacity at DED, I was able to work with ESRI. They are a geospatial program that Navajo Land Department utilizes, and in real estate department, we adopted that. And having that kind of one platform, geological system with the Navajo Nation, it would, with updated real-time information, let's say Forest Service updates their information, and then rural addressing updates their information, and then also with all these other departments that utilizes geospatial data. If the nation was to be on one entire geospatial map, and it would really help Navajo PD have accurate information, accurate points, ESRI has a Native American department, and they are amazing. They are willing to come to Navajo and present to all departments that will be that utilizes our geospatial programs. To get Navajo on one system would really eliminate a lot of things falling through the crack with our mapping system. And I think that's another step that we can take. Something that's already in place, but just getting the entire nation on that. So that's another recommendation. If needed, I can reach out to them and see if there's a way we can get them to attend a meeting with you, Delicarati. So, but just let me know how you would like to approach that. And then we can start taking the steps on that. So those are the two things I
Okay,
wanted to
thank you. Appreciate you so much. Thank you. So help me understand, ERFI, so you mentioned land department. Is this their consultant that they work with?
ESRI, it's a ArcGIS, they call them Esri. It's an ArcGIS geographical mapping system.
Mm-hmm.
And if land department has been using them for years. And if there's a lot of tribes that utilize their system as well. To map out their home sites, to map out their lands, the districts, everything like that. So that's what they utilize. And you can be able to find them online. And the direct team that we worked with, I guess you have to have their owner. We've been in communication with them for a little bit, but they directed us to the tribal department. So they do have a specific department that works with tribes.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. I think I've been on a possible training with land department because we were looking at how chapters, doing a community assessment because Navajo Nation right now does not have a 8911. I think this has to be the same program. And I think they need an annual, they pay an annual subscription. And so that might be also another area that we would have to discuss. But yes, so definitely we could have a conversation with land department.
I believe it's a one-time purchase, and they give licenses to different departments that will be utilizing their system. But in the end, it's going to be one map system, but they won't be accessing each department's data. It will just have in real time, everything will be updated. So if there's a change in home site or businesses, things like that, the information will be accurate.
Okay, appreciate that. Yeah, let's learn more about it and that dynamic, and that'd be great. Appreciate that. I do want to invite so on January 29th, and some of the all of the work we do every day, every hour is about protecting our people. So on January 29th, starting at 8 o'clock, we could make sure that this group here has information. If you want, and this is an area you're interested in, we're going to have a rural addressing and next generation 911 quarterly project update with our stakeholders. And so if you're following and you're concerned about access to 911 here on Navajo Nation, that's going to be January 29th, starting at 8. It's going to end at 12. And I'll put that on my notes to make sure we send out to this email listserv. So what we do have is we send out general information on this listserv. The Zoom invites, we're going to start tightening up because I think we send over 100 people an invite to the call. And every meeting, our staff collects attendance information. And so those individuals who have not been active, we're reaching out via email. And so they're either updating their information or just saying, we're sorry, we don't have the capacity to join the call. So we'll be tightening up our Zoom invites, but we'll always be presenting live stream. And that's a way for us to kind of have some type of archiving system. On the Navajo Nation Council website, we do have a tab that does say missing and murdered and their relatives. So you could see collectively some of the resources. But we're hoping with Navajo Technical University, we'll be able to, I say, depoliticize the movement, because once the 25th Council, our term ends in the middle of January. And so then that page will be, I think it's like deactivated, I'm not sure. So we're trying to use this year to merge a lot of our documentation and historical knowledge onto if NTU can build up that site for collectively for the public. And that could be a space also for the families who have asked for an individual page for their relative. And so we'll be providing that information. Tatiana, you have your hand raised?
I'm sorry, I was gonna say something, but I'm completely lost at what I was gonna say. I'm sorry about that. Oh my gosh.
It's okay. I talked about the webpage and some other stuff, but I know a few people had to drop off. We are, NTU is currently, they were advertising, and I believe there may have been some interviews on a researcher. So Twyla, I'm not sure if you want to give us just an update as we start. Well, let me pause before we move on. Is there anyone else on the call that wanted to say something or ask a question? Because then we'll get an update on our, the data. I gotta make sure I'm saying this right. Database, not a data center. We're talking about a database, developing a program like NAMUS so that you can have access to it. So is there anyone else before we start that conversation? Because that's going to be beneficial, talking about like data sovereignty, what can we do as a nation? We are self-funding that. So we are, with the support of you and our people, we are utilizing Navajo Nation dollars to fund a database that will, the first goal is to collect all of the information on our missing and murdered Diné relatives. So it would be, because NCIS is law enforcement, so unless you're law enforcement, you don't have access to that information. We do have NAMUS that we've worked with, but we also want to start collecting additional information that could help us with our prevention, justice, and doing some of those case analysis. But Dee, did you want to mention a little bit more before we move forward?
Yeah, thank you. I do. I have a quick question. How is the KTNN, who runs and operates that radio station?
Okay, so great question. So off just that question right now. So bear with me. It's a Navajo Nation enterprise. So the people own it. We're stakeholders in this enterprise. They do have a board, but they have, all of our enterprises are not directly under any Navajo Nation program, like executive program, or under Navajo Nation committee oversight. So I could give you a little bit more how the way that we're involved as a council is we receive their annual audit, but other than that, their operation and control is through their board and then through like their, I want to say their CEO, maybe it's called a manager, and their fee is 15. I think that's where I got the 1,500 for an hour. So that's what I know right offhand from KTNN.
And that's really sad for them to have to charge us to get an alert out. I understand education for our community an hour, but to send out the alert through Navajo Nation that there's a missing child, a missing person at this time, and announcing it should be able for the Navajo Nation Police Department to access and communicate directly with KTNN, especially they are the ones to determine that this is a missing child, this is a missing person, this is an emergency alert. And like Sister just said now that You know, it is repetitive. You know, when you hear the songs and music here in the valley, you know, when songs are being played, I go back to my childhood era of when I was in the
Yep.
laundromat at Silver Coins washing laundry, or walking bashes with my grandma. And this was grandma's song, or this is my mom's song. Oh my God, Johnny Cash. Talk about go to childhood, and you're
Mhm.
here in the valley. And that's why we burn cedar. Everywhere we go in the world, when you burn cedar, you pray, it's going to remind you of home. That's the purpose of the reason you burning medicine. The sweetgrass reminds us of the time we met our relatives there. The lavender. I have Shugoi here from the Valley of Phoenix, is the Otton people. That's their traditional
Mhm.
medicine. When I burn their medicine, I think of here of the valley. I think of what my relatives here at the Gila River do for me and pray for me. They're family to me. They're our relatives. And my sister just messaged right now. She said, your children are my children. We are the people.
Mhm.
Of course, I'm here for you. This is what we got to remember. Remember, this is a sovereign law, right? We're a sovereign nation, right? We're saying we're making profit and profit. Why are we profiting off of our people? That's the same thing that's happening
Mhm.
off of the reservation. The state, the federal government is profiting off of our people, insurance companies. We learned a lot from the sober living crisis. It taught us a lot already. We got to work with the right now, KTNM. That's our solution. There's the bridge and gap,
Mhm.
this barrier, you know. So I'd really appreciate it if we put that in there as well, of give us that time, the 1 hour, see an investment, 1,500. Let's invest that in your people for 1 year, and let's see what the alert does for our people for 1 year. And we can watch those numbers. We can graph those numbers. Let's start. We do have the solution. We have an enterprise. Why are they profiting off of us when it's supposed to be meant for outside? We're supposed to be working with Gallup, Farmington, Page. We're supposed to make business with them, not with our people. I thought we're here to take care of our people, our children. What happened to that? Where are we as a people? That's why our elders came together, and I love they came together at that moment. They knew this is a time community needs each other because we're all hurt. And you know how many elders lost children through their journey in life? That's why they sat there in the church as a community, because they were triggered too. They were hurt too. We were all hurt. It triggered someone in our lives. And that's why they say, don't take kids to that. They're innocent. Absolutely. But you
Mhm.
know what? It's called life. That's why we learn to pray with the medicine again. There is a solution here. KTNN, we have you. Where is all of our businesses Navajo Nation own? You already own businesses. We talk about how much the casino already invests and produces work for our people. That's profiting other off of people's money, but we're not asking for that. We're asking to invest in us as the people. Give us an hour on the radio station. Give us the alert through the radio stations. Make an investment in us as the people. Watch our your people stay and preserve and thrive and be a community again. Bring that as we do have the solutions. We have programs. I remember my first healing recovery class on the Navajo Nation about a year ago. I don't know what happened to it. I don't see it anymore, but I pray it comes back because it should be a monthly thing, a consistent thing. This shouldn't go 1 year and disappear. Just Move It is still there. They're thriving to this day. Thank you, Just Move It. Whoever organized it and continues to push it. Just Move It reminds me to run. You know, so here
Mhm.
we go back to K-Tinen, the music, the announcements. Yes, absolutely. And then when we go home, our family will educate me because my grandma asks me, what do you do? What are you doing with your life? Ha'i banana, ha'i. What is going on in the world? You know, and that's where we are as adults now. We are the young elders. We are the elders. We're getting old. We're aging. And thank you for everyone for staying healthy and fit and on your passion and goals to be here. But let's remember who we are as people, as a community. Let's start talking to the leaders. Our leaders have the solution. They have the powers, the tools, and the resources right there already. They just need a vote on it. So thank you again for allowing me to speak. Thank you, sister, for bringing up a solution. Thank you for building a bridge and a gap for us today.
I appreciate that. Yes, thank you. Thank you. This is beautiful because this is the type of support and energy we need. So I was going to mention, I did see, and again, I apologize, I'm catching up, but I think our epidemiology center started posting some of the work we're doing to collect Navajo Nation data under the DNET action plan. I believe this Friday we're going to be at the Shiprock Youth building talking about data on Navajo Nation. What does that mean to have access, and how we're going to analyze. So I will be there, and hopefully, bringing together some policy and some solutions forward. Maybe I could try to live stream, or I could ask if it's going to be live streamed. We'll go to Tatiana. You have your hand raised, and then we'll go to Navajo Nation. PHED. Tatiana?
Okay, what I was about to say, it all came back to me after we kept on moving forward with the conversation. So first thing, dealing with the task force members, I've been getting help with Lori and Lorraine to keeping track of our attendance, and well, for me, I would like to start moving forward with cleaning up the task force list because we are having problems getting those in-person forms met. We have task force members who have not been active since last year, so it's going on to almost like a whole year of these members not being online. And I do understand that, things do come up and we have other priorities in our lives. So I'll start sending out those emails, just letting them know, or just asking them if they still like to continue. And if not, please send us just a letter saying that you're going to be stepping down as a task force member. And I have been getting requests on how to join the task force. So if you're interested, please send me a letter of interest and I'll share it with the rest of the task force members, and then we'll move forward from there. And as we talk about the radio announcements for our Navajo people to get those resources, the information, along with sharing those alert systems, I have been in talks with the Dene Advocis, sorry about that, Dene Advocis Radio. The network manager, Stephen Pester, we've met last week on Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. And he was really excited to start working with us. One thing that he did inform me was that with that whole radio network, they kind of cover majority of Western and Central Navajo Nation. So they're in the places where you lose service with phone service. So they're covering that whole entire area. And what he informed me was that they can do public service announcements. So whenever an individual goes missing or family members want to share stories of their missing loved ones, getting resources out there like with Four Corners Canine Search and Rescue, Navajo Technical University, um, the behavioral mental health services, whatever, all of our advocates out there, if they want to share their information on what they do, the services they provide, how people can get in contact with them, they can do that on that radio. And we're going back and forth on different ideas on how we could do this, but we do have a radio program who's willing to work with us. And the great thing about that conversation was he told us that since this is kind of like community service announcement. This is kind of like a um like community service for the radio. It's going to be all free. So we're working together to get how much time we'll give to each individual and what we can do to work around it. So we do have an option out there, and I do know that KTNN is usually the first route we go to when it comes to radio announcement, but we do have someone out there, a program who's willing to work with us and give us that free time because they do emphasize that they want to be more involved with the task force. They want to be able to assist Navajo Nation in any type of way. So that's just something that I want to let you guys know, that conversation I had with him, and he was really looking forward to working with us. So that's all. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. Again, all of these meetings will be summarized and sent out. If you receive the email with the Zoom invite, you'll get that information. We've decided collectively at the beginning of our task force to try to be as informal as possible, and that what allows us to be more of an action-oriented task force instead of just like receiving a report, asking questions, and then voting. And so for our community representatives, we do have officially areas where you can, that's the official, like doing your letter of interest, but we always open it up at every meeting to have all of you involved because we're all part of the solution. And our hope is that this task force, again, I will look at our establishing legislation to make sure that there's like what we call a sunset clause to make sure that this task force does not end when the 25th Navajo Nation Council ends, just so that there's not a delay and that the 26th Navajo Nation Council can continue with this work. And that's just some of the challenges working through different administrations when it comes to the nation. In my experience, so this is the third administration I'm working with, and it does take, I don't know, it's so frustrating for me, maybe 6 to 12 months to get everyone back into at the program level, at the government level. So what we'll need is always to have this task force with a group of nonprofits, community members, to continue that work while the government catches up. And that's what we'll always see. That's the reality of the way that our government is currently set up, is that it does take a long time, and there is a delay and there's no like immediate, it's very hard to get immediate action. And that's why I have worked with nonprofits and to help with that work. And that's the role of the nonprofit, is to provide services that the government cannot provide. And I appreciate, we do want to reach out more to the businesses and enterprises in some of the work that they could do to help. And of course, as individual voters and relatives. So I want to move forward with Navajo Nation PHEP. Can you just introduce yourself for the record? Thank you. You have the floor.
Good morning, everybody. This is Shauna Jim James. I'm with Navajo Nation Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program. I work closely with Department of Emergency Management and law enforcement. One of the things I wanted to mention, especially for you, Delegate Crotty, is that Department of Emergency Management owns the software for IPAWS, which is the Integrated Public Awareness Warning System. And I don't know why they're not using it. It's a very good warning system, and that might be something that could be looked into. I know that one of the issues was that they didn't have the people who could actually, I guess they didn't have the training on how to use it. So that's just something that I wanted to throw out there. But I think what you guys are doing is very good. And I do agree that having a crisis response plan is very important. And I'm more than willing to assist and help however I can with that.
So Shadija, thank you for joining the call. And so we worked on a few other areas together, so I appreciate you. So in terms of, I'm going to need your help here because this is where I'm not clear. So we do fund, I as a delegate, I make sure that in support with this task force that we fund this Navajo Nation alert system. And we've talked about that on this call internally. And I just feel at this point, somebody's not being truthful, because if the funding is there, we do know that a contract, some action needs to take place with the contract, and so that's a program function. But if it's training, then that's what needs to be. That's the collaboration that we would need collectively, so that we could get trained. And what we've been asking for is, who is the Amber Alert coordinator for Navajo Nation? And we've been bounced back from DEM, law enforcement, PD. There's always all these internal changes that happen. So if there's a way to get that information, if you could get that information for us, so at least, and start mapping out like the path forward in your experience. We have had to work with our public health community because just, I'm not sure who needs a training, but they're not very open that they need the training, and then when we provide training, they don't show up. And I'm just going to say they because it's not just one person. It's, again, this is like a whole system issue. So if you could help us just navigate that, and let's just plot that out for a response plan through your lens as a public health, because when there's violence in the community, that there's certainly, this is a public health issue. And we've asked, like CDC to help us with surveillance. And, that funding never came through, and that's what we're trying to build up there at NTU. So is that something you could help us with, Ms. James?
I definitely am willing to assist, and I can certainly find out what the situation with IPAWS is right now. The last that I had heard was it was given back to DEM because it was under public safety. And at the time, the former acting DEM director, Mr. Harlan Cleveland, was the administrator for IPAWS. But my understanding was when Ms. Sandoval came on board, they had given it back to DEM, but they were waiting for the training. They were wanting to identify a new administrator so that that person has the training to send out the alerts. And testing it, when we first got IPAWS a few years back, it was awesome. It worked great. I mean, all we had to do was have the numbers that were in the Navajo Nation area, and it went out without any kind of hiccups. It was awesome. It was a test run, but it worked really great. And we have other tribes in Arizona like Cocopa who use it as their main alert and warning system for their tribe.
Right. Yes. And so any insight you can give us, or if we need to connect with training, and it's to the point where I would need to get like recommendations from this conversation. Like, do we have to formally mandate, or do we need to look for a partner, a non, and this is unfortunate, like a non-Navajo program-based, a non-Navajo government-based program, and look to like a nonprofit or another entity that would keep, has the capacity to the training, the management, the coordination, the public education. And I know some of the search and rescue and like our CERT teams, they are all willing to be part of that collaborative. And so maybe your office could be that one to help us gather everyone together, re-examine where we're at, and then provide that information. It's so critical. It's so critical. Those alerts are so important. And I know the funding is available. We've done different, we really have made an effort every year to make sure that has continual funding. And so I would just need help from folks on the ground to make sure it is deployed. So appreciate that, Shannon, for getting on today's call and then offering your feedback that it is a program that would work for Navajo Nation, and it's a program that we could utilize right now. So appreciate that.
Okay, no problem.
Gary, Shiaz, you have sure, thank you. Gary, you have your hand raised, Shiaz. Do you have any, what's your, with the follow-up that you would need from us right now? You have the floor up.
Thank you. Yeah. Is it Shannon from the Public Health?
Shauna.
Shannon is
Shauna?
I'm sorry, I said Shannon. Shauna. Sorry,
That's okay.
Shauna.
That's
sorry. Hi, Shauna. Thank you for all the work that you do, Shauna, and I appreciate you. May I suggest that when you train people to run the IPAW system, there be at least 2 people be trained in this area, because if one goes, the other one can step in. Otherwise, I can volunteer to help, okay? I can volunteer to run the IPAW system. I have a computer background. I have knowledge in the importance of issuing these warning systems, these alert systems. And unfortunately, it's just that the experience that I have gives me motivation to take these alerts out to everyone as soon as possible. So with that, I just wanted to put in my 2 cent worth for that, even though the cents are no longer valuable.
Thank
But
you.
also on one other information I'd like to give out to you all is that in about 4 days, on the 24th, will be Ian's 19th birthday, and I want you all to see if you can, express your thoughtfulness to him, because he probably needs it right now. And I haven't seen him for a while, haven't heard from him for a while. But you can probably contact him through his mother, Pamela, if you have that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, for reminding us about Ian and wow, 19. Wow,
Yes.
beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
he was.
So,
I've always told him to take care of his sisters, and he did that day, that fateful day, nearly 10 years ago. I mean, he could have stayed and left her, but he went along with her, and that's what I'm proud of him for.
great. And he's come a long way. He's come a long way from that time, and so we keep doing this work. So thank you, Shauna, for being part of the solution and helping us understand those dynamics. And just knowing, myself too, I try to get as much training as possible, because sometimes I realize that not everybody has a training, and if there's any way I could help, I always try to just make sure that we have that communication and collaboration. So appreciate that. Thank you. So we have a few people who had to drop off, but I wanted to say, so we talked about the alert, we talked about Navajo Nation. We'll get more information from our FBI analyst in terms of the data that they're seeing. We're also, Gary, I want to reach out to the team there that organize and coordinates the New Mexico turquoise alert. So I'll talk to the representatives and see if they're going to actually fund, because that's what we call like an unfunded mandate. So for New Mexico, it was another alert that was created, but there was no appropriation, there was no funding. So the New Mexico programs are using, looking within their own budgets to try to enhance. But the constant training that we could get. I'm also a member of the New Mexico Department of Justice Missing MMIP Task Force. And so they do provide, some updates, and it looks like they need more structure. So part of this task force can also be monitoring all of these state, Navajo Nation, and federal alerts, and, making sure they're being deployed, because there was another incident recently, I believe, just about, less than 3 months ago. There was another Navajo child that was missing in the metro area down there in Phoenix, and the family wanted a turquoise alert to be issued, and law enforcement down there did not make the request. So we do need to have a space here on our task force to monitor the implementation of some of our recommendations, so that we know that what works, what doesn't work, and then we could work with the representatives who appropriate or fund, and then we could work with the executives, the governor's office, the Navajo Nation Office of President, Vice President, who are responsible to execute. And so we could be that monitoring function, and to make those recommendations and what needs to be done. And always, we could also be the training. We could anchor all of this training through this task force until we could hand it off to either NTU or another nonprofit. I'm reaching out to our tribal coalitions to see in their funding if they could help us with some of the training I know they provided, like in Albuquerque. and other locations, which is great, but how can we build up an online training community so that we all have access to this information that works best for us? You know, as we try to meet survivors where they're at, we're also asking for these different orgs to meet Navajo Nation where we're at. And if we're limited, then you know, let's build up the online training for all of us. I don't foresee right now we need to issue certificates, but I think right now the first step is just to provide that this information is available. Tatiana?
Yes, I just want to ask before we end the call, we will need to reschedule the two presentations we were going to have today. One with the D Charlie on traditional healing and support, and the other one with vital records, and I believe it's DCFS who oversees Operation Rainbow Bridge on what our relatives can do when Navajo people are being detained and how to address those type of issues. Did you want to reschedule it for next week, Tuesday? We can meet at 8:30 and have a hard stop at 10 o'clock before the council session starts.
Yes, let's do that. I know usually we wouldn't meet during the council week, but just seeing how we need to come together weekly and families are asking us, like we work through, you know, the beginning of the holiday season, you know, for some, that's a time to relax and unwind. For us who are still, you know, it's also a time for us that it's hard to grieve alone, so we just provide this space. So let's do that on Tuesday. We'll have our hard stop, let's say 9:40, so we could transition, unless we could get Twyla or someone else to facilitate the last 20 minutes. But I'll know, Shadeja, both of us will need to transition to the Navajo Nation Council that's scheduled to meet at 10.
Okay. If anything, we will just do the hard stop at 9:40, and then we'll continue the conversation again, possibly the next following week if we need to. But I'll send out the agenda again with the same presenters for next week, Tuesday.
Okay, and for those who are on the call or listening, the way that we've been with our presenters is either from this conversation, there's a request for additional information, or when we're working, like let's say with the different trainers, we'll invite them and we tell them every Tuesday from 8:30 to 10, and so trying to meet them where they're at so everybody gets the information. The last thing I want to do is just have a few people on Navajo Nation have access to this information. And so if you have someone in your network that wants to help us, we have a template for onboarding for individuals who, you know, maybe this is your first time hearing or being part of this discussion. We have a template on how to onboard so that you could have access to the information. If you know of like interns or students who want to learn more and be part of the solution, where I'm trying to just, you know, develop some type of like a youth council component to this work. We have a section on, as I mentioned, with our elders, and we have a senior council and how to help elders when they're dealing with guardianship or, you know, dealing with law enforcement. We have our veterans who are involved, and so they have an advisory council and they want to be more involved in advocating for their veterans. So thank you, Delvina. I shared that with our one of our advocates who are working with the veterans, as we do have veterans who do go missing, and you know, and it's up to the, you know, how the family wants to share that story, but we are seeing the need, especially when they're dealing with PTSD and how they're coping with their trauma, and some of the, you know, how they're being targeted. So we have a lot of different things. I want to see you. Sunshine, did you want to talk about Operation Rainbow Bridge while we start ending up the call? and if they could be here, if Operation Rainbow Bridge, if we're able to get them on next Tuesday. What we could do is we could work together. So I'm just going to let you know what's in the chat if you're not able to see it. It says Operation Rainbow Bridge. ORB is Unified Command with Navajo Department for Children and Family Services, Navajo Public Safety, Navajo Department of Health, Department of Behavioral and Mental Health Services, Human Rights Office, and the Vital Records. So that is Operation Rainbow Bridge. It was first established or developed during when our relatives were, and through testifying at some of our meetings on what was happening at the community and relatives who had to use their own means to go down and rescue their relatives. So that was the beginning of Operation Rainbow Bridge, and it has had some hiccups, but now it's great to know that there's a unified command that will help. So one component is they're still active when it comes to reporting on the misuse of our relatives who are targeted for treatment, behavioral health services. And another component now, of course, is assisting our relatives who are impacted by the current federal policies, Homeland Security policies. So when it comes to ICE detention, we are made aware through our Washington office or through other resources, especially directly from families that are dealing when there's a Navajo citizen who has been impacted by ICE or is in a detention hold, I think, or a detainer, an ICE detainer. And so there is a need for this collective response. So that is the Navajo Nation response is Operation Rainbow Bridge. Okay, I don't think Sunshine's able to get on the call right now, but before we end, Tatiana, anything else before we close out?
Delegate Crotty, I'm here. Sorry, I hit a dead zone.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to give you, we're gonna be ending the call right now. Is there anything else you wanted to add for Operation Rainbow Bridge? How individuals just between now and when we meet next week, how they could get a hold of Operation Rainbow Bridge if they need any resources or advocacy.
Yes, thank you, Delegate Crotty. We do have a website, so if you go to operationrainbowbridge.org, you can log on and see all the resources. We have added additional information from our last call with our team. Again, it's housed right now under the Navajo Division for Children and Family Services, but it's a coordinated, unified command. There is President's Office's representative that's also on the calls. And then also we do have links to the missing persons unit with Navajo Nation PD. So there's additional information on the website. And as any confirmed reports come in, we're directing those calls to those lead persons. So just so everyone knows, it's also on our social media page with our Navajo Division for Children and Family Services. We don't have access to the old Operation Rainbow Bridge social media that has not been active for some time now because it was under a different leader at the time. So, but right now everything is being posted on our Navajo Division for Children and Family Services to help get the word out there. And we did release some recent information for the public as well. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. So we'll highlight that and do our best to share those resources to our relatives who are out there. I know it increases anxiety. There's discussions about how Homeland Security is utilizing, our CIBs, which is interesting because that's a federal document. And so there is a big push from Navajo Nation leadership working with Vital Records on how to come to the table with Homeland Security and again make sure that our Navajo Nation IDs are at the standard where Homeland Security will accept them as verification. Of course, you'll always have those bad actors out there who will try to utilize our information for their benefit. So we always want to make sure that we are at our end, making sure that our citizens are protected. So please reach out if you or your family have been impacted or if you need additional information, go to the Operation Rainbow Bridge website. So thank you very much. And the Navajo Nation Human Rights Commission, on their webpage, they have a complaint that you could file on, they have a current agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice, and they are part of the legislative branch, and so they are armed to do some of these follow-ups and investigations. So Yolanda, did you want to mention something before we end today's call?
I'm sorry, yes, I've been amending the phone lines for Operation Rainbow Bridge, and I'm getting ready to send out memo or a quick update to Tatiana so she can send it out to everyone regarding how many phone calls we received, how many hangups I received. It's all under 20 cents for the past 2 weeks or since the start. But I'll get that out to Tatiana so she can send it to everyone. I just have brief informations on there of what the call was. My first challenge will be transgender in the Phoenix area. He changed his name legally, but he never changed it legally with his CIV. So we will be working on that this afternoon. He gets off work at 12, so I'm expecting a call around, he said around 1 to 2, and we'll be working with the local vital records to see how we can change his name, because his birth certificate was never changed. He never did that part either. So we got a lot of steps to follow with him. And another thing is I still have my connections with the rehab centers, and a mother called in on Wednesday with her son missing. He does spot jobs at Home Depot, and ICE approached him, and he had his state ID on him, and they allowed him, they asked him, "Are you Navajo?" And he said yes. So they allowed him to move on, with obtaining a spot job. Unfortunately, the person, the employer that picked him up took him and needed him for 2 days' work. So he didn't come home. The mother called me on Saturday, and I put out, I called the local rehab center, and it goes from there. We start looking in the Phoenix area to all the rehab centers. And Saturday, about around 8 o'clock, he was not in any of the rehab centers. So I called back the mother, and then Sunday morning, she called me back and said that he was taken about maybe 45 miles outside of Phoenix to do a job. So, and then they brought him back in, and he came home, and so that was a happy ending. And then I do have like 4 calls from hangups, just checking to see if the number works. But I'll be sending that information out to Tatiana so she can. And I think it would help Vital Records if you guys could send us your questions, so that will we can work on the questions right away.
Okay, we could do that. That's a great recommendation. And it's good to know that also our relatives who do either seasonal or daily labor jobs, that we would have to, that's why the messaging is so critical. And maybe let them, encourage them to keep in communication with their relatives, especially during this time of just heightened awareness. So I'm glad Mom reached out, and I'm glad that there was a happy ending, because, that's what we want to see. I just encourage people, call, report, and the best thing for any of us is to remove someone off the list. That's the best thing, right? The best outcome, that they're healthy, they're safe. So appreciate that update, Yolanda. Okay, so we'll work on the questions collectively, and a lot of it is probably also tell Vital Records, even if it's a baseline, like what they're doing now, because the technology that's available, how people can, how community members first can access. And I'm not sure, if they're going to be deploying out these IDs. So some initial questions are, have they been able to get that recertified with Homeland Security? Because when the IDs were first announced, I don't know, 15 years ago, I remember it was certified with Homeland Security, and you would be able to use that to either go, into Mexico and out and into Canada, and, that travel. So, but things do change, and so we just want to make sure we have that correct information out. So we'll gather additional information. Thank you, Yolanda.
Delegate Crowdy, Director Henderson is working with Homeland Security to make sure that our tribal ID is considered a real ID. So
Right.
that's in the works right now, and I can't commit. Just, oh my gosh, Vital Records have been there at all times for all of us, and
Right.
they just have been doing an amazing job.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate all the work that Vital Records is working on right now. Alicia, could you just, is this your first time joining us? If you could just let us know if you're a community member with a program.
No, I'm with Vital Records.
Oh, okay. And Alicia, we could barely hear you from Vital Records. Let me see, try talking again.
I'm from Vital Records here at the central office in Window Rock.
Okay. Alicia, hold on. Let me see. On my end, I could barely hear you, but Tatiana, how are you hearing Alicia?
We can barely hear her. I'm trying to see if I can up her volume. Okay, yeah, I won't be able to do that on my side.
Alicia, let's see. Try to talk maybe, and let's see, or get closer to the mic.
Yeah, I tried to get closer to the mic.
Oh, I think, okay. So Alicia, I think we're having some technical issues, because I could hear you, but if like at a very, very low volume. But if you wanted to give a response, I think I could hear you, and then we'll try to work out the technical stuff by next week.
Our ID, since we've been issuing it since 2011, we never were approved by Homeland Security, and it was due to
Okay.
we don't have a secure location, so we never got through with that. There is a memorandum in place, but it's just kind of stuck at the facility not being a secured location.
Okay.
So that was our issue with that, and then we do have a website to refer everybody to if they have questions on getting a CIB or an ID.
Okay.
Right? Our supplies, so that's what we have to work that out. It's not the funding, it's just moving our funds around, and that's going to take time. So right now we're not taking appointments until maybe mid-February.
Okay. We could hear you so much better, Alicia. Thank you. But that first part, so let's talk about that. Send me the information on where you said there was a memo and it was never approved by Homeland Security.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to all get on the same page.
Okay, it was never, it didn't pass because our building wasn't secure. Our building was up at the president's office.
That's right.
So we do have a
Right.
memorandum with the federal government, and it's just kind of stuck there, and we never got pushed because we're not able to pass that secure location. So that was the issue
Okay.
with that. And so if we were to
Okay.
get that
Appreciate that.
secure location, then we can go ahead and move on with that memorandum of agreement with them.
Okay. And let me ask, is it a secured location for your office or securing the data? Because we're going to have a meeting on Friday, and that's something I could bring up.
It would be both. It would be the data
Okay.
and then the location itself. Right now, where we print the cards from is our central location, and it's down here at the HTE location. We do have a locking vault, but where we print, we're not able to secure that area that's just out in the open. So that might be an issue again, but like I said, we do have a vault with a combination on there right now too.
Okay. All right. Well, if you send me that information and what's needed, maybe I could do a little bit of seeing if that type of capacity currently exists anywhere on Navajo Nation, and if not, what are some recommendations from your office
For obtaining the real ID agreement?
No, for the secured location, yeah, and the real ID agreement, because I think you would need leadership's help, right?
Yes. And for the location, it probably would just be a different facility with a lot where we can lock up the actual printer and lock up the actual computer that prints it and everything, because that was what they wanted at that time when they met with Janet Napolitano. That was way back.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. It was way back.
Yeah.
That was at least 15 years ago. So okay, so let's have that conversation, and hopefully Yolanda, if you could provide maybe help vital records on what are the current new requirements, because we do have now like real ID that's implemented and has to be part of the system for sure, is my understanding. And if we could just, if someone could sketch out what is needed for vital records to have that ability, that's going to be part of the solution. It's not an immediate solution, but we could immediately start working on it. Thank you so much, Alicia, for joining the call. I know that you joined anticipating the discussion, this discussion, but I'm glad you were on the call on terms of, vital records and what we collectively can work together. So appreciate you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get you those questions for sure by, hopefully, I want to say by Friday, once we talk to our data team, and to see what are going to be some of the steps. Again, I'll look at what funding is currently could be available, or what is your capacity now that you're on the ERP system, or again, there's so much work that Vital Records is currently doing. We want to just make sure we're supporting. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay, so great discussions, everyone. And so we'll start ending the call. So we'll end the call. On my side, I have 11:44. Thank you for joining us. For relatives on the line, connect with all the resources that you may have heard about this conversation, and we'll always be here Tuesdays at 8:30 to continue to talk about the discussion. We'll start doing some visual mapping to help those who need to kind of see where, this large systemic issue, and then, break it down to how we could help one another at the home level, community level, just to support one another. So be well, take care of yourself, and appreciate all of the feedback. We'll see you. Hagona.